2 hours later, shortly after 5 o'clock in the morning, Riehl dialed 911 again. He was ranting nonsensically, and his tone was noticeably irate compared to the previous call. Deputy Parrish and his fellow officers returned to the residence, where Riehl initially opened the door but suddenly slammed it in their faces. He began yelling through the door, and it was clear based on his behavior that he was in a mentally unstable state. After deciding that it would be best to take Riehl into custody for an emergency psychiatric evaluation, the deputies attempted to enter the apartment. They quickly discovered that Riehl had trashed the residence in an apparent attempt to make entry difficult before barricading himself in his bedroom. He refused to come out, prompting Parrish and his colleague, Taylor Davis, to force their way into the room. They were unaware that Riehl was waiting on the other side with an AR-15, and he immediately opened fire on the deputies after they kicked in the door. Davis escaped unharmed, but Parrish was hit by the gunfire and collapsed. Riehl began shooting again as other team members tried dragging Parrish out of the apartment, giving them no choice but to leave him behind as they retreated from the scene. As a growing number of law enforcement officials gathered outside the building, Deputy Taylor Davis hid in the bedroom of Riehl's roommate, who wasn't home at the time. Knowing she was unlikely to survive if she stayed in the apartment, she jumped out the window. She was hit by a bullet during her escape, but ultimately survived her injuries. A SWAT team tried entering the apartment several times, but Riehl kept shooting at them. After an hour and a half of unsuccessful attempts to get inside the apartment, officers returned fire, killing Riehl at the scene. By then, it was too late to save Deputy Parrish, who died from his injuries while awaiting rescue. Riehl's motive for shooting at law enforcement remains unclear, but he had a long history of mental illness. In the tragedy's aftermath, lawmakers proposed new legislation which would make it easier to temporarily revoke guns from mentally unstable individuals, but it failed to pass.